Hey guys, welcome back. Today is one of my fun ones. We're doing the lapses again. I've done time lapses, hyperlapses, and motion lapses on pretty well everything I own. It's a Sony ZV-1's turn. Let's see how the Sony ZV-1 does with a time lapse and a hyperlapse. This is going to be fun because I love doing the lapses. All right, time lapse. Like I've said in the past with the other stuff, there's two ways of doing a time lapse. Doesn't matter kind of what the camera is. You can take normal video and then just speed it up in post. It's a time lapse because a time lapse is just time sped up basically. So you can just shoot normal video, speed it up in post, you get a time lapse. Now, the Sony ZV-1 though has the built-in function of doing a time lapse. What you need to be aware of is that it is photos that it's taking. So when it's one every 3 seconds, it's taking a photo every 3 seconds. So all your photos, you might end up with 400, 600, 1,000 photos that you need to put into a program, whether a video editor or whatever, that will process that and turn it into your time-lapse video. One thing you need to be aware of, and I've said, it takes photos. You don't set it in video to try and do a time-lapse. Because if you do, when you get into the menu setting, you can't turn the interval on because it's for photos, not for video. So you have to make sure that you're in photo, and I suggest manual, so you can adjust your exposure and get everything locked so nothing's changing. The other thing you need to be aware of, and a lot of people don't mention this, is your aspect ratio of the photo. Now, I didn't change mine from a standard photo, so I've got a square format video. If you want a normal video, which is 16:9, you need to change your aspect ratio of your photo prior to setting up the interval timing. So when you go to start your time lapse, you're actually going to get the widescreen version. Okay? Be aware, I did mine in the standard photo format so you can see what that looks like. All right, let's get into the wonderful world of Sony's menus. God, I love their menus. And they don't even call it time lapse. It's interval shooting. So let's have a closer look at the menu, see how we set this up. But be aware, you need to be in photo mode. When I was going through on the menu to show you, I was still in video mode. So don't try and trip me up on that one. I just wanted you to know you need to be in photo mode when you actually go to do the shooting. So let's get into the menu. All right, what we need to do now is go into Sony's menus to set up the time lapse. So you click the menu button, which will bring you up to their 12-page catalog with many subcategories. Now we need to scroll across to page 3, scroll down to interval shooting function. That's what Sony calls time-lapse photography. Click OK, and you've got 2 pages of information here. The first one is the interval shooting. We need to turn that on. I'm just going to leave it off for now. Then the shooting start time is basically when you press the record button, when do you want the camera to start your recording? I have it set to 1 second, so it basically starts right away. Next is the shooting interval. Now, if you're shooting fast-moving things, you need a slower 1, 2, or 3 second interval. If you're shooting plants growing, then you might want a minute or 2 minutes per photo. Since I'm shooting clouds, I've come in at about the 3 seconds. I can simply press OK, and you can see how I can adjust the timing. Now, based on this with 600 shots being taken, you can see that 6 seconds at 600 shots is 59 minutes and 54 seconds to complete that video. So it's fairly lengthy for that. Now, as you can see here, I'm about 30 minutes based on this. Now, if you're wondering about the math on that, I shoot at 30 frames per second. So it's 10-second clip, 10 times 30 equals 300 for 10 seconds. I've got it set at 600, so it should give me a 20-second time lapse. Now, on here, number of shots again is how many photos are being taken. And you can see I can adjust, and you can see the shooting time under there is changing accordingly with it. But like I say, I want a 20-second, so I've set at 600. Once you get it set where you want, you just press OK again, and you come back to here. So I'm set at 1 second for the camera to start recording. It'll take a picture every 3 seconds. It'll take 600 pictures. The AE tracking I'm not worried about because I'm shooting in manual. And this page here I don't worry about either. So basically you then just come back by hitting menu, all the way back out, and set up your exposure. I'm in manual, and that's what you want to do. Hit start, and it'll record based on your start time. That's all there is to setting it up in Sony's menu. So you can see how that wonderful menu works. And as I say, you need to be in photo mode and be aware of your aspect ratio of your photo. Now, when I was talking about the timings there, have a look at this. This will give you a good guideline of what to shoot and the intervals for what. So if you're shooting something fast, you need a fast one. If you're shooting something that's slow moving, you need a longer duration. That little piece I put up there will help you, definitely as a starting point, if you're into the new world of time lapses. So, all right, without further ado, let's have a look. This was what you saw the settings were. Let's have a look at the time lapse that I did using the Sony ZV-1. Now be aware, it was a super windy day, and I did have the camera on a taller tripod. So there, I do get a little bit of a twitch now and again because it was really, really windy because there was a storm coming in later that day. But without further ado, let's have a look at the time lapse. God, I love the lapse, and the Sony did quite well. I was quite pleased with it. That square format definitely gives it a new twist on doing a time lapse. So as I say, be aware of your aspect ratio of your photo so you don't get caught or taken by surprise. But yeah, worked quite well. It was a bit windy down there. Actually, it was very windy down there, and that's why you might see a bit of twitching now and again. Now, let's have a look at a hyperlapse. First off, what is a hyperlapse? Well, the time lapse first is the camera sitting, not moving, taking images over time. The hyperlapse, everything is stationary. Buildings, trees, people, not moving. The camera's moving. That is the hyperlapse. So the camera's traveling. Now, I did kind of what they call a hyperlapse slash a drive lapse. I basically mounted this in my car, and it was mounted. I wasn't hand holding it. It was mounted in the car, and I did a short little drive to show you what a hyperlapse looks like. Now, again, you have two ways of doing it. You can just shoot normal video, speed it up in post, or you can set it up in that menu to whatever time framing you want. But being aware that you're driving your car, you're going pretty quick, so you want a faster. You don't want one every 3-5 seconds. It's a little long. You want to come down into 1 or 2 seconds if you're doing a drive lapse because you're moving quite quickly. So anyways, without further ado, let's have a look at the drive lapse I did with the Sony ZV-1. I think the Sony does great. It did a good job with the hyperlapse there as well. So the time lapse, hyperlapse, the Sony ZV-1, I give 2 thumbs up to. Worked really well. Menu's a little quirky for me. Beware, you can take those settings and assign it to a recall so you can bring that back up faster. So if you're typically shooting at 1 every 3 seconds and you want a 20-second clip and you've got all that, you can lock it into your memory so you can fast recall it. Be aware you can do that. It's a handy way to speed time up and make life a little easier for yourself. But I think the Sony did a great job on that. I love doing time-lapse, hyperlapse, motion lapse, all that stuff. I love doing the lapses. I look forward to doing more in the future. So without further ado, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. If you enjoyed this, please give a thumbs up. So until the next time.